Erev Tov. Somebody asked us an interesting question the other day, which was regarding Tzlamim, which is the all kinds of images, all kinds of statues. So particularly, right, we're talking about this thing which is called Budda. You ever hear about this before? It's like a statue, There's different types of them. There's this type, there's that type. I'm sure they sell them already, Probably in 47th Street, all kinds of places like this. They're all over the place, these things. So the question is this like Avodah Zarah? This is the question. Because if it is, a Jew is not allowed to own this, or to sell it or to buy it. He's not allowed to deal with this if it's Avodah Zarah. Yeah, it's idol, yeah. So that's the question, The truth is, that when you get asked this question, you're reminded right away of something which is written in the Ramah, the Shulchan Aruch, you're there. He writes over there in the name of the Mordechai, right, which is in the name of the Ravad, in Masechet Avodah Zarah. He says over there something interesting. What about Slav, right, the cross? Are you allowed to do business with this? There's a lot of people in jewelry business. This morning I met somebody. I asked him, what do you do for a living? He says, I'm on 47th Street. Oh, I said, okay, Chazak Baruch. So I asked him a question, about this. I asked him, do you sell crosses? You sell them in your store? So he says, yes, I do. Tells me. I said, yeah, okay, well, you're allowed to. It's okay, because according to the Ramah, right, it's allowed to sell and buy these things. Why? What's the reason why? The reason is because it's not really Avodah Zarah. How do we know? Because it says in the Mordechai that if you have a cross, if they bow down to it, right, that's Avodah Zarah.
But the kissing it.
I want to come and kiss you now.
No.
Wait, one second. We'll get to that. So, if they bow down to it, says the Mordechai, then it's called Avodah Zarah. But if they wear it on the neck as a necklace, on the body, then it's okay. Why? Because it's not Avodah Zarah. They don't bow down to that. So you see from there that this is the whole thing. It depends on how it's used. So that's why the Ramah says in a different place. He says that the cross that they have in the church, and they bow down to it, this is Avodah Zarah. It's Avodah Zarah. But the one they wear as a necklace, is not Avodah Zarah, because they don't bow down to it. So what is it for? So we call that zecher, they remember, it makes them remember it. You know what I mean? That's the whole thing. Remembering is one thing. Bowing down is something else. Two different things, right? So, this is the reason why the cross, you're allowed to do business with it. Where is this brought down? As we said, it's brought down the Ramah, brought down in the Yechavadat, Chelik Gimel, right? Brought down over there, and also in Halichot Olam, brought down there, and also in Yalkut Yosef, brought down all these books, right? It's allowed to do business with the cross. So whoever does this, it's okay, he's all right, Don't try to tell him, you're doing Avodah Zarah.
I don't know, something about the jacket that you're getting.
No, he's talking about also a cross. If you look over there.
A jacket that you have a cross.
Not a jacket, I'm talking about a cross on your necklace. That's a different thing. That's a different story. Anyway, right, the point, that's two different things, right? The jacket and then there's the cross itself. This is, the jacket is clothing, it's like a minhag of the goyim that they wear this thing, It's something else, But here, it's a zecher. That's what it's for, to remind you of this Avodah Zarah. But remembering Avodah Zarah is one thing, but serving it is something else. It's not the same thing. You serve it. That's a different story, right? That's something else, So, therefore, right, this is the rule. So now you come to our discussion, right, which is about this Budda. Right, what about this one? So the truth is, that I looked into this, a little bit, and they all say, this is not meant to be Avodah Zarah. This is not what it is. This is not the way they think of it. What they think about this, it's reminding you of some things. Also, it's a zecher. To be a good man, to be good this, to be calm, not to get angry, all kinds of things, good midot, it reminds you to have good midot. Why? Because they say, that there was some guy like this, Buddha, his name was Buddha, and they're making a statue of him to remember his midot, his good character. This is the whole thing, you understand? It's not like Avodah Zarah. So therefore, right, if a person, has this kind of thing in his business, to buy them and sell them, there's really no problem. Same thing as the cross. Some people think, it's Avodah Zarah. It's not really Avodah Zarah. If you look into it, really, it's not Avodah Zarah. So Avodah Zarah is when you bow down. When they bow down to something, that's called Avodah Zarah. They serve it, And now, right, if we already know that, let's also go to the tree, right? That they make, right? When we were in Russia, a lot of us had these trees in the house. You know that, right? We were over there. This was a minhag over there. They called that the New Year's tree. Right? A lot of people had this in the house, and they didn't know, that this is not allowed. They had no idea until this day. People who come from the Russian countries, the Soviet Union, Sovietsky Soyuz, they still have these trees. Even though they're Jewish. Why? Because it was a minhag like this, over there, to have these trees. So the question is like this, right? Is the tree Avodah Zarah or not, right? So the truth is the same thing. The tree is not Avodah Zarah. They don't bow down to the tree. You know what I mean? Nobody does that. Huh? That's one thing. We're going to get to that in a second, but just the question is, are you allowed to sell and buy? Let's say you're a dealer, right? Let's say, you got some Jewish guy, right? He's a wholesaler. He sells these trees, So what are you going to do? Tell him, oh, you're doing Avodah Zarah. No, it's not true. It's not Avodah Zarah. It's also Zecher. Same thing, So all these things are called Zecher. So therefore, there's no prohibition of Avodah Zarah in these things. Now, that's one thing, So you can do business with it. Buy and sell. No problem, You're allowed to own it. That's something else. But, on the other hand, right, obviously, you have to be crazy, right? Jewish person to put a necklace, cross, right? Or, to, what do you call it, to put this in his house, something like this, or in his car, same thing with the Buddha, what are you going to do? Put the Buddha in your business, right? In your office, right? What are you going to do? They're going to think you're crazy. People are going to come look at you. They say, this guy's a goy, he's Avodah Zarah. They're going to think like this about you, They don't know these little details. But the point is anyway, there's another reason why you're not allowed to do these things, to wear these things, or to put them in your house as an ornament. The reason is because we shouldn't do the minhagim of the goyim. That's one of the things, It says in the Torah like this, don't go in the derech of the goyim. Do not go. Again? Right. Lo telechu. Right? Exactly, yeah. So this pasuk is telling you, so Rashi learns over there that means, you shouldn't do the customs of the goyim. Even though they're not Avodah Zarah. Doesn't matter. That's the reason why, we always tell people every year, listen, don't do Thanksgiving, like the goyim. Don't do it. Don't do this dinner, the turkey, don't do it. If they have it on Thursday, you do it for Shabbat, right? Change it, do shinui, But don't do it. Don't have it on their day, because this is the minhag of the goyim. They tell you, well, it's not Avodah Zarah. It's not okay. It's not Avodah Zarah exactly. It's just
what's the problem with that?
Minhag of the goyim. This is the problem. It's a minhag of the goy. That's the thing. We shouldn't go in their ways, in their minhagim. This is the reason why also a person, should avoid all these things. The kultura, of the goyim. Going to the movies, going to the theaters. All these things. What business do you have there? This is minhag of the goyim. There's also moshav letzim. There's another prohibition with these things, But anyway, the point is, right, that these things we have no business with them. So you don't want to look like a goy, do his minhag like he does. This you don't want to do, right? So therefore, you shouldn't have it, in your body or right right. Of course, yeah, tattoos, yeah. Of course, you're right. All these kinds of things. You shouldn't have these things. Also in your house, in your car. What you like? You're some kind of Puerto Rican? What are you? Like these Puerto Ricans. They put these things in their car. What are you? You're not Puerto Rican. You're Jewish. What I mean? Make sure you understand what you are. That's the thing. So this is the whole idea with this kind of thing. That whatever they bow down to it, it's not allowed to. Right? This is already Avodah Zarah. So therefore, if they bow down to it, like the cross that they have in the church, as we said, right? This one they bow down to it. So there the Ramah says this is Avodah Zarah, mamash. This cross over there in the church.
What if they have at home?
It's the same thing, Wherever they have it, the point is, if they bow to it, it's Avodah Zarah.
Now you said that Buddha is not the idol, but they bring
Right.
gifts for it.
I'm sorry?
They bring gifts for it.
Yeah, whatever. I don't know what they do, but they don't worship it as a god. You know what I mean? They don't look at it as a god.
Sacrifice is like
like Yeshu, this was a god. You know what I mean? This is God. This Avodah Zarah. This is the way they see it, the Goyim. They look at him as a god. So that's something else. We're not talking about that. But when it comes to these, I looked into it. By the way, this whole thing, researched it, and they say that they say it's not a god. It's not meant to be a god. Just a zecher. That's what it is. So therefore, right, whatever is a zecher is allowed. Whatever is a god, right, worshipped as a god is not allowed. That's the difference, right? But anyway, either way, we shouldn't use them. I'm sorry.
If you go somewhere and
Where do you go?
make a tour to the church.
Okay, yeah.
You go to Vatican, one of the examples.
Yeah, this is a good question. I remember, I'll tell you honestly, when I was a kid, I was 7 years old, when we came from Georgia to America. I was 7 years old. So we stopped off in Italy, for about 2 or 3 months for the summer. This is like very common, right? So we stopped over there, and somebody took us to the Vatican, when I was a kid. I remember, we saw it. You know what I mean? I was a child. I didn't know nothing about these things, But today, I wouldn't go there, I wouldn't step my foot in there.
Why?
Because it's one big church, right? It's Avodah Zarah over there, It's all Avodah Zarah.
You're not going over there like pray. You're going over there like take a look.
Right, that's the thing, But
Yeah, like museum.
right, I see what. Yeah, it's like a museum. I know what you mean. But the problem is like this, There are places over there where they pray, like a church,
Okay.
Yeah. So what's the problem? The problem is, that we're not allowed to go into a church. What's the reason why? They say, the Mikubalim, that when a person goes into a church, the tumah of the Avodah Zarah clings to his neshama, When he comes out, he doesn't know that this happened to him, But he's contaminated with this Avodah Zarah, And it's going to give him a big Yetzirah, this thing, Because this is Makom Tameh, it's Makom Tumah, the church. You understand? This is the reason why you don't want to be there. A place where it's Tumah, a place of Avodah Zarah, where they pray to Avodah Zarah, you should never go in a place like that.
Can you go to Muslim church?
Right, so the Rambam says, you can go to the mosque. Why? Because they don't do Avodah Zarah over there. They believe in one God, right?
But there is something going on over there.
Yeah, there may be things going on, But the Rambam says like this, that the Ishmaelim, they have a yichud, perfect. What does that mean? They believe only in one God. That's it.
So they're like us or what? What is it?
They're not like us, but they're not Avodah Zarah. This is the difference. They're goy. It's a goy, Goy is a goy. They're also anti-Semites, what I mean? The Sonei Israel. I'm not talking, you know what they are, right? They kill Jews. They're killers. They're murderers. They kill, but Avodah Zarah they don't do. The first thing that they do, these Ishmaelim Machshemam, when they go take over some, Christian place, they go to the church and knock down all the statues over there, That's the first thing they do. They're very zealous about it. This is what they do. You ever see it? You ever see them what they do? They go, knock down everything. Because they don't want to, they know it's all Avodah Zarah. Everything over there in the church. So they knocked everything down. ברוך ה' לעולם, אמן ואמן. רבי חנניה בן גרשי אומר, רצה הקדוש ברוך הוא עוסק בישראל, לפיך אפילו בא להם תורה ומצוות של אדוני חפש, למען צדקו יגדיל תורה וידיר.